Hey guys, it's Bernard here from Living to Learn. Thanks for tuning in. So I'm going to go through part 2 of my video on the core kit I carry. I reckon it's probably going to go to 3 parts because after this video I pretty much only got like miscellaneous stuff and maintenance kits and small things, so I'll probably just bang it all into one video. So it'll probably be part 2 of 3 of my kit video. So what I'm going to talk about today is my shelter system and my sleep system. Sleep systems probably, like most of you, take up most of my kit in terms of size and weight, and it's something that I spent a long time evolving, and started out with like a sleeping bag from Argos and a foam mat, roll out mat, yoga mat type thing, and strapped onto the side of the bag in a tent that was Halfords, and gradually went down the road of hammocking, got a tarp, and moved on then to going to ground, and that's where the kit came from. So like the last time I've laid the stuff out in the ground, I've laid the stuff out and we're going to just talk through it bit by bit. Talk about how I got to this point with my stuff, and hopefully you guys will get some ideas. Like I said before, if you guys have any questions, want to know anything about the kit or where I got it, or what ideas or what I might be able to tell you about ways to improve your kit, comment section, and of course the Living to Learn community page on Facebook. Anybody who's not a member, there'll be a link in the description. And there are some cool videos on there already about kits and sleep systems. I know John Bishop's covered his kit pretty recently. He's cut a lot of weight out of it, and fair play to him. He really butchered it. So as John Bishop has covered his kit, I think Paddy's covered his kit as well, and Joe's done a fairly comprehensive video on his sleep system and the importance of choosing the right gear for you. So I won't ramble on anymore. We'll set up and we'll start. Right guys, so here we are. We've got all the stuff laid out in the ground. So it basically breaks down to shelter system with some crazy high-vis cord that I got recently as a result of Paddy Carroll complaining at camps about constantly running into my guy lines. So if you missed this now, Paddy, that's your own bloody fault. So we'll start with shelter. My tarp is the DD Superlight tarp. We've probably seen a bit of coverage about this on the Facebook page from a couple of guys now have bought into it. I started out with a DD XL tarp to go over a hammock, and like most people probably when they go down the tarp route, I made this mistake of assuming that I was going to need buckets of space. I was going to need the biggest tarp I could possibly get. And it's great. I still have it, and I won't sell it because when I know I'm going out and the weather is going to be particularly bad, or I know I'm going to get stuck in really heavy rain, or there's a couple of guys going out who mightn't have tarps, it's a handy thing to have such a large tarp. The XL tarp I think is 4 by 3.5 meters, which isn't the largest DD do. To do it 4 by 4 as well, which a couple of the guys have, which has been dubbed Hotel California. But it was just too big. It was too large. It was probably about the same size as my roll mat packed. So I wanted to cut weight and size, pack size more so than anything else. And the 3x3 wasn't that much of a step down. And I ruminated on going into the super light sort of category for a while, because there's a tendency among super light stuff to not be very robust. It tends to fail, and they're designed for true hiking, not bushcraft activities, and in their role they perform really well. But I have to say, I've had this now for 6 to 8 months, not 100% sure, and it's brilliant. It weighs 400 and, I don't know if you can see that, yeah, 460 grams, excluding the pegs, which are absolute garbage. Throw them away as soon as you get them, or find another use for them. And it's 3 by 2.9 meters, so it's not quite an exact square, but you can do pretty much all this square tarp configurations. So 3 by 3 is plenty for pretty much all weather. It's just about adaptability with a tarp. You can go for diamond configurations, A-frames, lean-tos, and it's just weather dependent, wind dependent, and just how you feel. Some people like to have a slightly more enclosed space. I know during the summer I'll tend to set these up as leaners, and I'll just sleep quite open. And then in winter, recently at the last couple of camps, I've set it up as a tarp tent. I'll hopefully do some fancy editing and put some pictures in around this time. But yeah, it's a really versatile tarp. Really small, like very small for what it is. And yeah, it's a piece of kit that I don't think I've regretted buying at all. The only thing I will say about it is that the tabs on it, the tie-out points, seem fragile. They're not, but in order to kind of reinforce them, ignore the messy guidelines, I've just tied pieces of shock cord, bungee cord, onto some of the major tie-out points, and that basically means if the wind kicks up, or if I'm putting extreme amounts of pressure on the ridgeline, this can give it a little bit of give. So it means it'll hold tension, but if the wind kicks up, you'll get a little bit of stretch out of it, and that's why I've gone and got the high-vis shock cord now. You can get that quite cheap off eBay, Chinese websites and stuff, so there's no need to go and spend big money on it, but it's a good little addition to your kit. Just kind of gives you a bit more security with the weather. And also, this stuff's really good for prusik knots, which I believe Joe has covered before. If not, we'll do a video and cover it. But prusik knots are basically go around the ridgeline and through your tabs on your tarp. You'll put maybe another piece of cord or a little stick or a tent peg or whatever through it, and it's a self-tensioning knot. So when there's lateral tension on it, on a prusik knot, it will hold tight. But if you release that lateral tension, you can slide it up and down the guy line. It means that you can really tighten the ridge line on your tarp. It means you get a really strong apex on your tarp, which is kind of important. It stops bellying and stops puddles forming. So yeah, I went down the road of Superlight with the tarp, and I don't regret it. I know a lot of guys have gone down the same road since, and they don't regret it. So it is a great bit of kit. There are other tarps available. DD just seem to have really cornered the budget tarp market, and like I think 70 to 90 euro, I could be wrong on that, but like it's a great tarp, and you can go down the Sil nylon route if you wanted to as well, but I find I don't think it's necessary. So that's the DD Superlight. What else in terms of shelter? As I've mentioned, this will be pre-attached. It's going to be cut into, I'm not 100% sure what length, maybe 30 foot, and then I'll have a couple of corner tie-outs with smaller pieces on it. That will be pre-cut. It's just I've only got it recently, so it'll be pre-cut and it'll be put on it, and that is going to make my tarp big pimping. So I'm pretty happy with that. Just as an aside, on occasion, I will bring this out with me. It's the DD Superlight hammock. I started out hammocking when I went into the bushcrafty route. It's just something I found that's a little bit too faffy. There's just a bit too much to it for me. I tended to wake up quite cold quite a lot of the time, and I spent money on under blankets. there's nothing wrong with under blankets. They do work, but they just add more stuff that you have to carry, and it just seemed unnecessary. And then when I went to ground, I haven't looked back since. But I bought the super light set. I use it as a seat on occasion, bring it out on day hikes. It weighs nothing, 260 grams, including the set of tree huggers, which are quite good, and these little things, which are soft shackle carabiners. So instead of carrying the standard carabiner, you carry these, and they're made of am steel, which has really high breaking strain. So whoopee slings are these. So instead of using a paracord or hammock slings, you'll use am steel, and that's really light, really strong, and really adjustable. But soft shackle carabiners, they bite on themselves using a self-tensioning knot, and they are ridiculously strong. A little bit scary at first, but if you're going down a lighter route or you want to reduce bulk, they're a great little thing, a great little way to do it. It is scary, and you will find yourself worrying whether or not it's going to hold, but I can assure you it will hold. I've really acted the maggot in my hammock, and yeah, they hold. So that's a good little way to cut some weight. I think they're around the same price as standard carabiners on DD. So they're the soft shackle carabiners from DD. They came with the hammock. So if you are going down the route of cutting weight, it's not a bad option. So I think that shelter pretty much covered. I do want to buy a tent. What I found is, as the Living to Learn page has grown and as my experience has grown, I will be taking on larger trips, hiking trips, multi-day trips, into places where I haven't gone before. And when the summer rolls around and you've got midges to deal with and ticks to deal with, and if you're in an area you don't know where the conditions are, something you're not going to be 100% sure of, a tent isn't a bad way to go. So I am going down the road of getting a tent as well for exactly that situation. It's just not something I've got yet. I have a couple of tents, but they're all cheap, they're all massive, and they're all like 4 person, which is ridiculous for one person. So yeah, so I think that's pretty much my shelter wrapped up. We'll move on to the sleep system now. So with my sleep system, I basically wanted to get a system that I could trust all year round. I hadn't got the money, I'm sure, like a lot of you guys, to go and buy a summer bag and a winter bag, and I wanted to get the best I could get for my money. I also wanted a system that was versatile, that I knew I could use in the middle of the summer when it's dry, or in the middle of the summer when it's raining, in the knee-deep muck in the middle of winter, or yeah, just all year round. And I spent a lot of time researching. I went down the route of synthetic bags that were costing a lot of money, and they weren't packing down that small. Don't get me wrong, synthetic bags are great. Really, you can get some really good bags. I know I've seen some bags that I really am jealous of out on camps with Living to Learn. But after a lot of research, I went down the route of a down bag, and it's in here. It's a bag that actually a couple of guys have bought since I've seen it in the flesh. It's the Kelty Cosmic Dry Down 21 Fahrenheit down bag. It's so stuff's down pretty small. Now this bag is rated down to -6 degrees Celsius. So it sounds like overkill for the summer, but it's really just about how you use your bag. I know a lot of guys prefer to have a 2-season bag and then go to a 3 or 4 season for the winter. Like I said, I just hadn't the money, so I wanted to go down the route of something that I could use all year round. And this is what I went with. So There we go. This bag is probably one of the entry-level budget bags for down sleeping bags. I think it retails anywhere between 150 and €200 on, I think, places like Amazon. You can get them off a few different websites. I got mine on Amazon, and it's 550 fill. So that the number, the higher the number, it means basically the higher the density of down inside each of the compartments. So you can see there's stitching along each rib, and it basically means that you don't end up with as many clumps, which you'll get with synthetic bags as well as down bags. And I've used this now in the summer in 10-degree heat in the middle of the summer, 10-degree heat at night, in the middle of the night, and I've used in -4 and 5-degree in the middle of the winter, and it has never ever let me down. Since I've bought it, I've never had a cold night's sleep. I've rarely had cold spots. I'm not saying that this is the only down bag or it's the only way to go. Just to be clear, it's just something that I've been incredibly happy with since I got it. And it's the reason why I can use it all year round is because I choose to use it differently. So during the summer, I'll open this up fully. It's a 3/4 length zip, you can see, and I'll open it up fully, and I'll use it as a quilt. I'll just throw my feet into the foot box, and I'll open this all the way up, and I'll start lying inside it, just with the loosely tossed over me. And then throughout the night, I might rotate and just have it over the top, or I might just have it over the bottom and throw it over as I get warmer. Inside this now, I'll wear in the long johns in the winter when it's cold, and a t-shirt, and then in the summer probably just my skivvies and a t-shirt. And like I said, I've never been cold. I've never had a real issue with it. It's a great bag. One of the concerns that a lot of people have with down is, well, it's a common question, is what happens when it gets wet. I'd love the idea of a down bag, but what happens when it gets wet? You know, I'm in serious trouble. Well, that bag and a lot of other down bags nowadays have a hydrophobic substance that's laced into the down, and it essentially means that it will repel water. It's not waterproof, but it will repel water. So your own sweat, showers of rain, drizzle, or I don't know, but I would go as far as to say probably a little bit of moisture inside your dry bag or your stuff sack, and it will repel it. So if you are looking to go down the route of down sleeping bags, I would always recommend, particularly in Ireland, to go for a bag that has hydrophobic material, not necessarily dry down, because I think that's exclusively the Kelty, but some variant of it. Dry down is probably one of the most important prerequisites for me if I was choosing another down bag now. The fill power is also important, but what I found is the higher the fill with the same features as the Kelty, you're going into the 200, 300, 400 region of euro for a bag of similar spec, and it's I can't justify that money. I can't. You will get smaller pack sizes, but I just can't justify it. Then the other query and concern that a lot of people share with down bags is the maintenance. You know, I want to buy a down bag, but you know, what about the rain, and also what about the faff that I have to go through when I get home? You know, God, like, I'm gonna have to wash this all the time, and what if I wash it and it gets ruined? And I don't want to have to, you know, dry it all the time and make sure it's lofted up, and I can't leave it in the stuff sack. Well, to me, they're all things that you really shouldn't be doing with a synthetic bag anyway, and I'm sure a lot of you guys don't. What I do basically is when I get to camp, I set up, I've got my bivvy here, which I'll go through in a second, And as soon as I get my bivvy out and I've got my tarp up, I'll open up the bivvy, I'll throw this in, I'll give it a quick shake, I'll leave it there for the day and I'll close up the bivvy. By the end of the day, that's fully lofted up, just like a synthetic bag would be. And it's got it's at maximum thermal efficiency. If you leave it in the stuff sack, and just like the synthetic bag, if you leave it in the stuff sack and you throw it out 5 minutes before you're going to bed, it won't have lofted. There won't be any air trapped in the insulation. So you'll tend to sleep colder, and because you're in it compressing the insulation, it won't have as much of thermal value. In terms of maintenance, when I get home, I just take it straight out of the stuff stack. I don't leave it compressed, and I might hang it up. Sometimes I lie it down flat, or if I've got a shelf or whatever, it just depends where I'm storing my gear at the time. I'll just put it on a hanger, or I'll just lie it out on a shelf and I'll leave it there, and that's it. I know a lot of guys will put it in a hot press, which is like where your boiler is in your house if you haven't got a hot press. But yeah, they'll just hang it up in the hot press and just leave it, and that's all there is to it. You might need to wash them if you get it particularly wet or you're particularly mucky getting into it. I haven't had to wash mine yet. It still smells fine. There's no stains. It's just simply down to a good maintenance regime when you're out in the field. You just don't mistreat gear like that, or don't mistreat any sleeping bag, and then you'll be fine. There's no special maintenance to it. The one thing I will say, if you are considering buying the Kelty, is that it's a tight bag, it's a tight fit, and a lot of bags that are going to compress down small will be a tight fit. So it's not, I wouldn't say you feel immobile or constricted in it. I feel okay, but if you're a huskier guy or you're a taller guy, they're quite a short fit as well, so like that's a regular, and I'm about 6 foot and I can sleep in it okay, but when I put the hood up fully, it's a little bit tight. The large is probably the better way to go if you're a slightly huskier guy, but bear in mind this is a down sleeping bag, weighted down to -6, so you don't need to always have it zipped. There might only be 2-3 occasions throughout the entire year where you'll need it fully zipped. Well, based on the way I carry my gear anyway. Yeah, so if you've any questions about that bag or down bags, I've done a lot of research. I'm not going to say I'm an aficionado on the subject, but if you want to have a chat about it, just hit me up with a PM or something, and I'll be glad to try and help you guys. But we'll move on swiftly because we've waffled about this a bit too long. So inside that, I will use this, which is a new addition to my kit. This is Gucci in the Extreme. This is the Sea to Summit Aeros pillow, ultralight. Again, sounds like I'm an ultralighter, but I'm not. It's just, if I can get something that's small and it's cheap, I'm going for it. So they're about like €30. I'm not a big fan of using pillows. Camp pillows I've found tend to be ludicrously uncomfortable and you bounce around the place in them. But this is a really good little addition to my kit. It was actually Joe Price put me onto this, and I've seen Davey using one too. Davey Brock Knives, an admin on the page. I'm sure you all know him at this point, but folds down tiny. It's a tiny little pillow. But one of the cool things about it is a dual valve, so you can inflate very quickly. Three decent blows, and you'll notice that the valve's open. It's not deflating, and it's quite firm. If you want to reduce the pressure in it, has a stop valve in it. I tend to use it quite soft. And then if you want to pack down all together and you want to break camp quick, just literally, and that's it, done. Joe has talked on his video about sleep systems about the larger version of it. I think it's called the Aeros Premium. I can't remember. So if you're a guy who likes maybe 2 pillows under his head at night, and you know, if you're a guy who uses one pillow or sleeps on his arm, the smaller one's a better option. But I'll put the link to Joe's video in the description, and he can explain the logic behind his choice. But I've only got this recently, and I have to say it's a really comfortable pillow. It's probably the most comfortable of the camp pillows that I've used before. So previously I was just using my jacket or fleece. I hadn't got wet or damp throughout the day. I just rolled it up and put it under my head. But I found that I was waking up with a sore head and sore shoulders. So I went down the route of getting the pillow, and it takes up absolutely no space. As you can see, you put that in your bloody pocket anywhere you want it. So that's a really cool little bit of kit. So I'm really looking forward to getting more use out of that now over the summer. So I suppose next we'll move on to the bivy bag. So this is inside a dry bag at the minute. Doesn't really need to be because it's Gore-Tex, but it is the US Army bivy bag, which is the exterior of the MSS military sleep system, and it is camo, which I'm not mad about, but you're not going to really get a military gear that isn't camo. But it's full Gore-Tex, and it's enormous. It's enormous. You can do cartwheels in the bloody thing. It's great. I got this off, again, Joe's recommendation. I hadn't got a bivy bag previous to that, and then when I got the down bag, I knew I was going to need something to protect my bag. And then as well as that, with going to the ground and using tarps, there are times when water will creep in, be it along the guy line or from driving rain, or if you set up on a little bit of an incline, you will have a little bit of creep from the water down the hill, and you want something that you can trust. Now there are lighter versions. You can see it's packed down quite small there for what it is, but it is a hefty piece of kit. It is quite heavy, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I had considered going down the route of the Snugpak Special Forces bivy, which packs down like smaller than that, about that size, and it's about like €90, and it's proper super light Gucci. But it's tighter, and I don't really see the need to replace this at the minute. I just have this. I really wanted to go down that route, but now that I've thought about it, I don't. Like, what's great about this is this thing is like an old friend when I take it out, and a lot of you guys have various iterations of the, be it the Czech Army, the British Army, and with this one, this particular model has the side zip, which is a full side zip, so it's pretty much full, I think. Yeah, pretty much full, and it has snaps as well, and you can get in fully inside this, like completely cover yourself up. And I've seen videos where guys are using this in -20 in the snow with no shelter, and they're inside it and they're happy out. It's one of these things where I just take out of my bag, I throw it on the ground, and I don't care. And I know that sounds a little neglectful, but I don't care. I trust it. It's full Gore-Tex. It's strong as an ox. I trust it. When I put it down, I'll use this the odd time as a ground sheet even. I've used it on 2 occasions for carrying stuff from one point of the camp to the other. It's just something that is really versatile. And you can, in warmer months, you can use it as a sleeping bag in itself. Because it's Gore-Tex, it's also breathable and waterproof fully. And if you don't trust it, you can just treat it with a water repellent or a waterproofer like Fabsil, or some of the spray waterproofers you can get as well. I don't know any other brands, so I won't pretend I do. But this one was treated with Fabsil by Colin Reddy actually when I got it. And yeah, it's never once let water in. It literally beads off, and it's a great piece of kit. Like I said, it's a bit bulky, and if I wanted to cut more weight, and bulk from my kit. I easily could by dropping this, but I don't want to. It's just not something I want to do at the minute. I think if this fails, I might. But until that point, this is a beast, an absolute beast. There are plenty of other bivvies out there that are really, really good, but like in this thing with the sleeping bag, I can roll fully in it. This doesn't creep with me. I can have the thermarest inside it with me. I've had my clothes, I've had my knives, bits of gear in there with me at night time when it's particularly bad with weather, and there's loads of space. So unlike a lot of bivvies that tend to be quite constrictive and quite tight, and there are things to consider with tighter bivvies, is that sleeping bags, and like I said with loft, is about trapping air, and the insulative properties of sleeping bags, in the same way as a sleeping bag with a bivvy, is you need to create voids of space that the air will warm up inside them. And when you've got a tight bivvy bag and your sleeping bag is touching that bivvy bag constantly, there's no void. So your cold air on the outside is transferring directly to your sleeping bag. And when that happens, if you are touching the inside of your sleeping bag, the cold air is transferring straight through your sleeping bag into you, and you end up getting cold spots. I think a lot of times people will experience cold spots in their hips, their knees, their shoulders, or their feet, because of the pressure points between the cold air or the cold ground, the bivvy bag, the mat, and the sleeping bag. It's not because the insulation in your sleeping bag is crap or because your thermarest is crap. It's a simple case where there's not enough air being created. Now, a thicker thermarest will do that, but also things like foil blankets are a great way of creating a stop barrier for cold. But yeah, so I think creating more space when you're in a sleeping bag with a bivvy bag, or even a sleeping bag in general, is important. So try to get bags, sleeping bags and bivvy bags that are as roomy as possible. And yeah, and from there you'll start to notice a difference with how much heat you can hold and how low your bag can go in its temperature range without failing on you. Actually, that's one thing I want to just go back to the sleeping bag very quickly. Sleeping bags, when you're buying them, if it says it's rated to -20, it's not. There are very, very few brands that are very true to the temperature rating on them. The one thing I will say about the Kelty is that, as I said, I slept down at -5. It's rated to -6 Celsius, and it has not. I have not been cold. Its comfort rating is -6, and it's fine. North Face bags, I've noticed, tend to have the same sort of thing. If it says it's rated to 0, and it's rated to 0. But there are a lot of bags out there where it's not the case. So if you are buying a sleeping bag in general, if the temperature rating says -5 on it, I would suggest that bag is probably only going to be good to 0 to 1 degrees. And then there are other things you can do to bring up the insulation inside it. You don't have to not buy the bag. You can buy the bag and go to eBay and spend a few pound on cheap British Army softies. You know, Joe's done a video on softies as well. And they're a great way just to bulk up the insulation of your bag, that you can take a 3-season bag to an all-year-round bag, or a 2-season bag to an all-year-round bag. And they're cheap. You can get them for €40. And they're really good. So there are ways of pumping up the insulation properties of your bag, but I would just always be careful with temperature ratings of bags. They tend to be a little bit of a stretch. They tend to stretch themselves in what they say they can do. But anyway, I'm waffling again, so we'll move on. So finally, this is an old friend now. I've had this quite a while. This is the very old, I get this right, thermarest, the original thermarest. What I think this is the original iteration of the Trail Light Pro. You can see actually that this has an irregular stamp on it. I actually got this brand new, sealed in its bag, off an Irish buy and sell website for €30, which I think was one of my best buy and sell sort of bargains. So this is self-inflating, but like most self-inflators, you'll have to finish the inflation off. It will inflate up to about 60 or 70% on its own. I don't normally let it. I will just take it out, blow it up. They do say you shouldn't blow into it because the moisture in your air the moisture in your breath will condense inside it, will form mildew, which will eventually ruin the insulation inside it, and will make it smell, and it'll make the material more brittle. But that's just, I don't care, to be honest with you. That's just, it's up to you how you inflate it. I personally just blow the thing straight up. But this is a really good sleeping mat. I've had it for 2 years. Yeah, close to 2 years. Like I said, I got it dirt cheap. It has foam inside it, in cellular little foam points, as you can see, and it's thin foam, and the idea is when you blow it up, that creates air pockets. Those air pockets heat up, and I'm not going to repeat myself. You know where I'm going with this. But a good thermarest with a good bivy bag and a good sleeping bag is really a recipe for a good night's sleep, which is really important. What I will say about thermarests is they're quite bulky. This one here in particular is quite bulky because of the foam inside it, because it's an old version, and because it's durable. I've never had any issues with deflations or pinholes with this. I've known a lot of guys, and I've seen a lot of reviews of thermarests that are ultralights, or the Neo Air, or the Neo Air insulated, or different versions of it, the Sea to Summit ultralights, and guys tend to get punctures in them quite a bit because they're designed to be as thin a material as the manufacturer can get away with. Now, don't get me wrong, they're not flimsy, but this thing is really thick material. Again, like the bivy bag, I would probably replace this when it fails, and I would probably go for your ultralight option. I will probably go for a Sea to Summit ultralight, or a Neo Air insulated. Probably the Sea to Summit, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's about that thick when fully insulated. It's not the thickest in the world, and you do tend to get some cold spots and spots where your elbow or your shoulder will touch the ground, but it's not the worst complaint to have. And for €30, it's not going to kill me. I'm not gonna fall out with this. I've had really good night's sleep on this since I got it, so it's not something I'm not gonna throw it away that easily or upgrade, because it's not really an upgrade, it's just a weight cut. So yeah, it's a really comfortable piece of kit. So that basically is how my sleep system works all year round. The only thing that I wouldn't carry consistently is the hammock. I do tend to just throw it in the bottom of the bag sometimes because, like I said, it weighs nothing, and if there's a lot of trees about and nothing really to sit on, I'll just throw this up, sit down in it, we're happy out. But yeah, it's composed essentially of a lightweight tarp, down bag, Gore-Tex bivy bag, fairly robust sleep mat, Gucci pillow, very high vis cord and shock cord for Paddy, and yeah, that's about it. So that kit stays the same pretty much all year round. I don't tend to carry much more with me, and that has a distinct advantage for me, is that I know my kit. I know how it packs, I know how to pack it. So the sleeping bag will go in the bottom of my pack, the thermarest will go in the bottom of my pack, along with maybe a litre of water or something quite heavy. but they'll go down there because they're the last things I'm going to go for. Everything else is going to pretty much come out before it, except for maybe my food. But yeah, I've gotten used to these now. I know them. And that's one thing that sleep systems really are, is they're so subjective that it's a trial and error process. So you will buy kit, and you will probably you might have 2 or 3 bad nights sleep, and if that's the case, fine, change it. But also bear in mind that sometimes it can just be how you use it. It could be the perfect bag for you that maybe you're not utilizing properly because you've got you've got loads of layers of clothes on, and you've reduced those air spaces, or you're compressing the insulation too much, or you've got a really tight bivy bag around it, or you're sleeping with a wind exposed to you and you haven't got a bivy over it that's windproof, and it's pulling the heat out of you, because it doesn't matter what bag you're sleeping in. If there's a wind blowing straight across your sleeping bag and it's exposed to that wind, it will completely drain the heat from you. That will happen regardless.